Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. And today, well, I have a very special guest. And while I personally don't have the patience for programming, my guest today definitely does. She works for Mathworks, maker of MATLAB. Her name is Louvere Walker-Hannon, Lou for short. And she obviously must like that job because she's been there quite some time. But she also does speaking, so I'm really interested to learn more about her job at the Mathworks and obviously about her public speaking endeavors as well. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Lou.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you for having me on this podcast, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So just from doing a bit of background research on you, I saw that you got your undergraduate degree in biomedical engineering. Where did that interest come from?
So that's a great question, Neil. So my interest in biomedical engineering came from trying to see if I could help people in general. And one of the ways that I thought I could help people when I was younger is to try to do something related to the medical field. So I didn't want to be a doctor. I knew that up front. So I said, maybe there's some other way I could help out. And that's where I became interested in biomedical science first. And then I thought, oh, well, with engineering, there's a possibility I could get a job after graduation. So that why not study biomedical engineering?
Yeah, I also studied biomedical engineering eventually as well. And like yourself, I didn't want to be a doctor either. My reason for not wanting to be a doctor was, I don't know, do you remember the TV show ER?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so I remember watching that show and noticing that the doctors had to sleep at the hospital and they never got really good sleep. They had to be woken up for surgeries and all that. And I realized at that point that being a doctor wasn't for me because I need my 8 hours.
Yeah.
Consecutive.
I don't blame you. Yeah. It's a good thing you found that out early on.
Yeah, for sure. So I also noticed that you have a master's too. What prompted you to get that?
So when I was still working at Mathworks, I wanted to challenge myself more. So as you pointed out, I've been with Mathworks for a while, and I said, you know what, there are new skills I can learn. So instead of just, trying to here and there read a book or maybe watch a video or two, I said, you know what, I really need to commit myself. So I signed up for this master's program in geographic information technology, where I said, let me take a few courses and see how this works. And then after a while, I thought, oh, this is great. I've always liked learning about how to perform tasks related to digital mapping. And that's where that interest came in, and got my master's degree in that field.
Oh, wow. Do you have any plans on taking any more types of, courses or certifications?
Yeah, I do have that plan. I have to figure it out, in terms of trying to figure out the money side of things, but also to see what could possibly be in alignment with not just my interests, but also to maybe help out with work as well.
All right. So I mentioned in the intro that you've worked at Mathworks for quite some time. What was the type of job that you've done at Mathworks over the years?
Great question again, Neil. So I've had 3 types of engineering roles while at Mathworks. So the first role, I started out in the engineering development group, also known as EDG. And this is where they take the new engineers to the company, and we predominantly work on technical support, but they also give us projects to get exposed to different departments in the company. And through that particular role, I decided, you know what, I'd like to see about training people, because after doing tech support for a while, I noticed some patterns. And I said, maybe people, if they had the chance to learn before doing some tasks, this would help out. So then I transferred into the training group, where I was a training engineer for it's over 15 years. I was a training engineer, and that's where I'd go out and train the customers on how to use the various products from Mathworks. And in this next phase, I'm now an application engineer, where I help out predominantly with a lot of the pre-sales activities, where I paint the technical vision for the customers before they potentially purchase the products, and also answer their questions and help facilitate their relationship with Mathworks and in terms of how to use the tools. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So I know just from the the jobs that you've done, these sound like more individual contributor jobs. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yes, you're correct, Neil.
Oh,
Yes.
right. And so is that on purpose, or do you have any plans on becoming some sort of manager at some point?
So that's another wonderful question. So I feel in my various roles, I've had the chance to lead a few projects. I would like to explore becoming a manager at some point, and maybe in the next few months to the next few years is the time.
Okay. When I worked as an engineer, I had no interest of being a manager. So if you have something that you want to pursue, kudos to you. But for me, the reason I never wanted to be a manager is I never wanted to be responsible for the work of others. I'm I'm more concerned with what I need to do. And then when you're a manager, you have to give performance reviews to other people. You have to set their whole, I guess, development plans together with them. It just seems like a lot of work that I really don't want to have responsibility for.
It's a lot of great points. I know for me, I think that maybe it's something that I will kind of like very, very, gently try to maybe ease into and get a little bit of experience. But you bring up some points that, I will definitely continue to consider.
Yeah, because I find that a lot of times, especially at a lot of these companies, people that are really good at their job as individual contributors, they get put into these manager roles. But being a great manager has nothing to do with being a great individual contributor. And so a lot of the times you have this kind of friction between this newly appointed manager who was good at their job just when they were responsible for themselves, and now they're responsible for the output of other people. And there could be a lot of issues when that person is put into that job when they really don't have the skill to do that job.
I have witnessed that, not per se related to Mathworks, but a lot of my friends and family members have commented on the same themes. And yes, there is a disconnect in some cases. So that's why, in my particular case, I'm hoping to just maybe, explore the possibility, see if it's a decent fit, and then figure out those next steps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when it comes, just when I'm thinking about it right now, I guess the number one, I think the number one issue or that needs to be tackled is when you put these people in this position as a new manager, you need to give them the tools or resources to be successful. So just even them having a mentor just to go to the bounce ideas off of, or just run scenarios through with, that I think could be really helpful. I think a lot of times these people are just kind of thrown out there into the wolves and said, okay, you manage people now, figure it out. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I have no clue what I'm doing now.
Yeah, exactly. I could definitely, see that happening in some of the cases some friends and family members have pointed out related to a lot of other places. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that you now work as as an applications engineer, and you've had a couple of roles before that. What have you learned in your previous roles that have prepared you for the role that you have now?
This is great. So one of the key themes, and I think it relates to what's one of the themes in this podcast, is being able to communicate, not just being able to communicate well with your internal colleagues, but also externally as well. So in my case, with the customers of Mathworks. So communication is key, and in various forms. So speaking, writing, and even being able to read things like body language is helpful as well.
Wonderful. So how long have you been in the role that you currently have?
So for now, it's going on 3.5 years because I started out in this new group in 2016. So it'll be 4 years coming up in December of this year.
What do you like most about it?
I like being able to assist both my colleagues and the customers with being able to figure out, are these particular tools fit for them? And if they're not a fit, and if they're interested, being able to help facilitate giving them any additional information or providing them with additional support.
And what do you like least?
Oh, great. Okay. One of the least items I don't care for with the role is sometimes related to building up a particular process to help speak to some of the customers.
Okay. One question I probably, now that I think about it, I wanted to ask you earlier is, you did get this degree in biomedical engineering. Did that degree prepare you for the job that you ended up doing at Mathworks?
You know what? In a lot of ways, that degree in biomedical engineering did, because of being able to take a problem, break the problem down to smaller pieces to help solve that problem. So I would say absolutely yes. And that's helped me out in my roles at Mathworks, but also related to other coursework and just interacting with people in general as well.
All right. So when it comes to the speaking that you do, what topics do you like to speak about?
So I have to admit, people tend to see me as a fairly quiet person, but when given the opportunity to speak, I like to speak about a lot of different types of topics. And I guess the topics have three major categories. So the categories are trying to highlight, what are STEAM related and STEM related, tasks as well as opportunities that are available to people. So trying to point out, yes, you can do these particular roles as well. The second topic is trying to highlight opportunities for underrepresented groups in tech. And the third topic is pretty much trying to highlight, what my journey has been to get to this particular stage. So those are kind of the three categories that, I tend to speak on and I guess like to speak about as well.
Wonderful. When it comes to the presentations that you do you have a process for putting them together? And if so, what is it?
So this is definitely a loaded question because depending on the audience, I have to admit, there may be some slight variations in the process, but it tends to start with, I'd say, probably three basic stages. So the first is to try to figure out what may be of interest to the audience. So doing some research in terms of what may be of interest to the audience. After that, creating a storyboard to help me identify what are the key themes and messages I'd like to point out and hopefully have the audience members take away. And three, make certain I get feedback from a lot of different people in terms of the presentation. So being able to look at the, presentation itself, so it could be a PowerPoint presentation, being able to comment on how I'm speaking, what I'm saying. And those are typically kind of the three ingredients I typically use most of the time for these presentations.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm when I first started giving presentations, I never gave any kind of thought to story at all. And I think it's because just working as an engineer is just not something you think about. At least I didn't. But I noticed that especially when talking to non-technical people, story is really important because the information that a lot of us end up giving, especially even if it's for like a work presentation, it can be pretty dry and boring. And you want to couch all that technical data into a story format just to keep people's attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. And I've even noticed in cases where you do have technical audience members, you want to get them excited and interested as well. So, why not do that for the benefit of hopefully everybody or as many people as possible in the audience? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to presentations, do you ever get nervous? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
So there are some cases when I do get nervous before a presentation, especially too when I keep thinking, what, is this really what I want to say in front of this particular group, even after all the practice that's taken place? So what I do is I try to kind of take a step back and, try to say, okay, what, there's a reason why you are here. You're here to provide this information. And quite honestly, this information was, in most cases, requested. So hopefully those audience members do have that buy-in already. And after being able to kind of just take a step back, take a few minutes to breathe, I think through those ideas, that typically helps out. And I say, listen, what, I'm here, let me give my 150%. And afterwards, let's go back and listen to any feedback and maybe recalibrate if we need to.
Yeah. You know what? You mentioned something that kind of triggered something in my head. I hate that word triggered. It's used so often now, but it's the first word I thought of.
Yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So you mentioned practice, and I'm a firm believer in practicing presentations beforehand. I have a friend, and he sometimes makes fun of me over the fact that I'm a big believer in practice because oftentimes when he gives his presentations, he just wings it. And I noticed when I first started giving presentations at work, I did that as well, and those presentations were absolutely horrendous. They were the worst. I didn't know it was possible to sweat that profusely, during a presentation because when you're presenting kind of off the cuff,
Right.
you're not necessarily presenting things in a way that people can take in. There's no logical flow oftentimes because you didn't practice making that logical flow. And so oftentimes what happens is you get to the end of the presentation, and at least for me, I was getting questions that I thought I had answered during the presentation, but because I didn't present it in, the most efficient way, now I'm getting these questions. And I guess it got to the point where I just felt like I needed to get better at this. And practice was definitely one of the things that I did to get better in public speaking. So I'm a firm believer in practicing.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I use the phrase, different strokes for different folks. So, if your friend can go out and wing it, kudos to your friend. But I know for me and quite a few other people, even if it's deemed at least a small amount of practice, it helps out. I think it helps increase our confidence level as well as being able to have kind of clear ideas about what we want to say to that audience. But once again, if someone's able to just go and wing it, kudos to them. But I think for the rest of us, a lot of us would like at least maybe a little bit of practice.
No, he should stop winging it. I hate his presentations.
Oh, wow. Okay. That was interesting. Okay.
You didn't see that coming, huh?
No, I did not. I have so many questions now. So many questions about these presentations that your friend is giving.
No, but the reason I don't particularly care for them is I think it shows the fact that he didn't practice or the person didn't practice the presentation beforehand. And another thing I think about practicing is that it shows respect to the audience, that you actually,
I agree.
that you took, they're taking their time to listen to you speak. The least you can do is present in the best way that you possibly could.
Oh, no, I definitely agree with you. It's interesting.
If you agree with me, why you say different strokes for different folks?
Well, here's one item, though. The reason why I say
diplomatic.
Yeah, I am. I try. I aim to be. But I do say different strokes for different folks because, some people may have a certain process they follow in terms of preparation that may be different versus what they've seen other people do. So they may, in fact, be doing some form of preparation. And it may come off as, oh, what is this happening with this presentation? So in terms of different strokes for different folks, I do believe that, for some people, they are able to maybe pull things together at the last minute. I don't personally recommend that, but some people are able to speak off the cuff, so to speak, fairly well. But that's an advanced skill, I think.
Yeah,
if people are able to do that well.
Yeah, maybe that's some. Now, I was gonna say that's something that I work towards, but no, actually, I don't mind practicing. I'm cool with it.
Exactly. I was just like, you have to do what's comfortable for you in terms of your presentation. So do not just try to emulate someone else, hopefully for just the sake of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it helps out in some cases.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that. So when I first got the idea to get better at public speaking, I thought that I had to emulate others when it came to becoming more effective in public speaking. But then I quickly found out that wasn't a good idea because I wasn't being myself. I was just being a cheap imitation of somebody else. But at some point, I had to speak the way I would speak. I mean, obviously, I want to get across points and I want people to pay attention. But I felt like the best way, or I believe that the best way to do that wasn't to try to copy the style of somebody else's. It's really to build my own and go from there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I know people highlight, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So I understand where that sentiment comes from, but people can tell fairly quickly that you are comfortable or uncomfortable presenting using a certain style. And once you have that disconnect with the audience, I think that's something you really have to consider after you're done with that particular presentation and come up with your own style. Now, one point is your style may borrow certain aspects from other people, but it's not completely a 100% copy.
Yeah, for sure. If I say something that you disagree with, you'll let me know, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because we're agreeing on everything so far.
Okay.
But then again,
Too easy.
Great minds think alike. That's how I look at it.
Okay, I will take that. That works.
Right. So, we've talked quite a bit about public speaking, and you have a bunch of topics that you like to speak on. You have a process that you tweak every now and then depending on the speech that you have to give. Are there any tips that you could offer to people who want to get better at public speaking?
Yes. So one of the items that you spoke about not too long ago, practice, practice, practice. Whenever there's an opportunity, go and practice. So I know most people may not get the opportunity right away to go and practice public speaking, but there are small things you can do. So one of the things I used to do years ago, so I would be a lector at my church. And one of the things to do is, you have to read out of the Bible as a part of that role. And the reason I say that was kind of a step for me is because it got me used to being comfortable in front of an audience and being able to at least say words. They weren't my own at the time, but at least say some words. And then another step that I followed is just trying to volunteer to be around people, especially every once in a while when I would have to maybe give someone instructions. So I really feel a lot of these presentations are expansions on conversations. So if you can expose yourself to having more conversations with people, I think that helps out quite a bit as well. And then the third big item is when you do have opportunities to speak in public, I would say take them and make certain you do the necessary preparation that's comfortable for you before those opportunities take place.
Well, they're excellent tips. Thank you for offering them.
I hope they help.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention on things that you're working on currently?
Yeah, so one of the biggest themes that's happening now, I think for a number of us with the COVID-19 pandemic, is presenting in a virtual format, which is new and different for a number of us. And I think that with a virtual format, there are some other skills that we need to use more heavily that we may not have used before. So one of the skills that I'm working on currently, and I'm trying to do this with each new presentation, is to help out with my voice modulation. Because a lot of times with some of these presentations, a person may not be able to see you. Maybe the screen is taken up by a slide or something else. So being able to practice certain skills with presentations now that we're doing a lot of these presentations virtually is something I'm focusing in on. So if I hear any hints and suggestions, I can let everyone know, but I'm working on my voice modulation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. It's not really something I've thought about, but just like you said, the virtual presentations is kind of new to a lot of us. It's not something we've had to do but COVID-19 is kind of necessitating that now. Well,
Yeah.
So all of us got to get better at it. I think now I think about COVID-19, a lot of us have been working from home, and because obviously we have to. When this whole pandemic, I guess, passes, is that something you want, at least personally, you'd want to continue, or are you itching to get back into the workplace environment?
This is another wonderful question because I go back and forth. So part of me does want to go back to the office to be able to interact on some level with my colleagues. But by the same token, I want to do that in a safe manner as possible. So I think that what would probably work for me is a balance where maybe there's X number of days you work remotely, and then some of those days you're back in the office.
Yeah. And those days that you're back in the office, those are the days you're risking getting COVID-19 from people in the office.
Yeah, I know. Despite so many other of the metrics that are out there, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to make certain I follow the safety protocols, all of them.
Yeah, man, just bathe yourself in hand sanitizer, wear the mask at all times. Stop shaking hands, just bow like you in Far East Asia.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a different world ahead of us, and I think we all have to get prepared for it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Lou. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, that's a great question. So people can get in touch with me in a variety of ways. So I'm on LinkedIn, and Neil, you said my name at the beginning. Feel free to connect through LinkedIn. My name is Louvere Walker-Hannon. You can also email me. So feel free to email me. I'll give my work email address. So it's lwalker@mathworks.com. So either of those two options works well. And let's connect and let's talk. And we can talk about more than just presentations, but I like talking about presentations.
Wonderful. Well, everybody, this marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geeks to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you very much, Neil. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.